Welcome to the second century of photography, part 3, which is the final part, and this video is probably the longest, but at least initial video is in like 40 minutes. I don't know if it's better. You can let me know in the comments, because I don't know. But yeah, hope you enjoyed previous videos. If you didn't, go check them out first, because this is a third part, as you can see. So go check out the first and the second part. And for those of you that already seen the first and the second part, we can just jump right in and let's learn some more until 2000s. By the 1967 though, we had first MOS, which is metal oxide semiconductor, just like a matrix. Right now we have CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor, but the first one wasn't complementary. So the MOS was a matrix made out of 10 by 10 pixel array. So 10 by 10 pixels, that's how big first digital sensor was, just the right amount for your deck bag. 1968, we've got the first active pixel sensor, which is APS, and the last two inventions were introduced by Peter Nobel. Okay, sorry for pausing here, but I was just researching the dude because I wanted to find a proper picture of our Nobel guy here, and he turns out to be a really noble dude. Like, who casually does this? And yeah, he is still alive, I believe. And you know what he wants to do? He's like, yeah, I invented digital image sensor. Now I want to cure blindness. Can you believe this guy? He is really a noble guy. And there's apparently lots of Peter Nobels, so if you want to find him, search Peter J.W. Nobel. He seems like a really interesting guy. Alright, back to the video. Which also in 1972 created an MOS in a size of 64 by 64 pixels. More artistic side, on the other hand, in the 1970s, Bunnell started printing pictures onto sculptures, evolving both photography and sculpture. Fairchild Semiconductor. I'm sorry, but that company name sounds like you use child labor and you're trying to disguise yourself as not using child labor by using a Fairchild in the name. But I'm digressing. So in 1973, they introduced CCD chip, which was now 100 by 100 pixels big. Also during 1970s, ISO standard was introduced, because prior to that, it was a mess. We had like 3 different systems of measuring sensitivity. And we went a long time without standardizing it, which I'm really glad we did, because holy 1974, Joseph H. Newman created first chemograms, which was combining painting and photography, which is again painting with chemicals on the piece of paper. Somehow it's different from chemographs, even though it's only one letter difference in the name, and the technique is fairly similar for combining both painting and photography. So I don't know why they're a bit about it. This is so different. It's not. It's fairly similar. That's what I'm gonna say about that. In 1975, Bryce Bayer, Kodak, develops Bayer filter mosaic pattern for CCD color image sensor. And the pattern consists of RGB squares. A year later, 1976, Steadicam was introduced. For all of you that don't know, Steadicam is a stabilizer mount on your camera that stabilizes the image. And during the 70s, more and more people wanted to show their world, share their story, overall share their own perspective rather than historical one. And after inventing first digital sensors in 1970s, 1980s saw lots of improvements in that department. Also, colors started to pop up more. I guess it got cheaper to produce, and it was more common for everybody. 1980s also saw some experimental techniques too. For example, Joiners by David
Hockney,
which basically combines different pictures into one giant picture. And apparently he got the idea because he got frustrated that his camera wasn't wide enough to capture everything. So he invented this. In 1981, Pentax MEF AF SLR was introduced, which was first in-body focus sensor, which used a motorized lens. And also, in 1981, Sony introduced Mavica magnetic video camera, which was first of its kind analog electronic camera. It stored analog pictures on floppy disks, and you could have up to 50 colored picture on one disc. So it wasn't really digital, it wasn't really analog, it was something in between analog and digital. 1983, Nikon introduced first autofocus camera, Nikon F3IF. I always read as for 1986, Kodak scientists invent the first megapixel sensor, which was huge news, but it wasn't available yet. It was more of a proof of a concept, I think. 1987, Canon introduced their first autofocus camera, Canon EOS 650. 1987, Photoshop was created by Thomas and John Knoll. A year later, in 1988, Fujifilm, Fujix DS1P, was first fully digital camera that recorded digital images using memory card. Should sound familiar. In 1990, Adobe Photoshop 1.0 was released for Mac only. In the same year, Dicam Model 1 also came out, which was first digital camera with JPEG and MPEG format. It even allowed you to connect it to the computer to place the picture on the machine. 1991 was a crazy year because we've got first commercially available DSLR. It was called Kodak DCS, and it wasn't really a camera. I lied, it wasn't really a camera. It was an attachment for your camera. And the first one was specifically for Nikon F3 that turned the camera digital with the whole power of 1.3 megapixels. Also that year we've got first webcam, which wasn't really a webcam, but it was called Trojan Room Coffee Pot, and a bunch of scientists put the cameras on their coffee pot so they can check if there's a coffee available at times, and then even connected it to the web so they can observe coffee pot in the kitchen from their offices, which is so funny that we started like that. Why the webcam was invented? To watch a coffee pot. Amazing. In 1992, we've got Photo CD from Kodak, which was, just CD that was basically designed for storing pictures. 1994, Nikon introduces first optical stabilized lens, which basically moves pieces of glass inside of your lens, up and down, left and right. It's a counter movement to your movement because you're shaky, you're old, or you drink too much coffee and now you're shaky. So they've got your shaky ass hands. Also that year, we've got ourselves first commercially available webcam camera made by Connectix. Year later, in 1995, we've got first digital cameras aimed for regular consumers. We've got Kodak DC40, and we've got Apple QuickTake 100, which was first color digital camera, and it started at $1,000, and that was $1,095,000. Year later, 1996, Kodak, Fujifilm, Agfa Photo, Konica create APS, Advanced Photo System, which if you're hearing about for the first time, you're thinking, that sounds great, that must have been success. It's like crossover of the century with all these companies working together, right? I mean, the concept sounded cool, provided you with information similarly to Kodak autograph film, but this time it did that digitally. It put it a date, exposition, all of that important things for you. Well, you couldn't really get the film out of the can, go to the lab, and they had to use machine to do every single thing with that can. You didn't got the film strips, you got the can. The format turned out to be really shitty and it died out rather quickly. But by the 1997, we had reached a peak of film cameras, because in that year, cameras sold in over 37 million units, which is quite funny if you realize that like a decade later, film photography was basically dead because of the digital photography. But digital photography was like 1 megapixel, so good they were using film. And in 1997, we've also got the first known shared picture via smartphone. Philippe Kahn sent a picture of his daughter to over 2,000 people. The mad lad attached 1997's flip phone with the phone cable to a digital camera, took the picture, sprinkled it with a few lines of code that he wrote on his 1997 laptop. By the year 1999, we've got ourselves first phone with the camera, which was called Kyocera Visual Phone VP210, which had 110,000 pixels front-facing camera. And if you think that's a lot, that's like 0.11 megapixels. And this bad boy allowed you to take up to 20 JPEGs. In the year 2000, we've got
JSH0,
first phone that could take and share the pictures. And it came with a back-facing camera with, again, 0.11 pixels. So yeah, not that impressive, but you all know how impressive the technology got within the last 20 years. But we've got to the year 2000. And in the year 2000, we started slowly transitioning into the digital sensors from film. But we weren't ready yet. It took a couple of years for the digital to really took off. It also took a few inventions, but I'm not gonna talk about them. We've just did 100 years of photography history. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. Maybe I'll do more videos like that. Maybe I'll do the third part of the photography history, the last 20 years. And also, what did I miss that you feel it's the most important thing in photography history? You can type that down in the comments. And yeah, that's it. I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep.